Tonight, after accusing a police sergeant of acting stupidly, the president phones him and has a very public change of heart.
And I could have calibrated those words differently.
I'm Katie Couric. Also tonight, cash for clunkers. The auto trade-in plan started out simple enough. Now critics say it's taken a wrong turn.
Can you explain the rules clearly?
As of today, no.
More Americans are abusing it, the powerful drug that may have killed Michael Jackson. And Charles Kuralt introduced you to this family. 31 years later, Steve Hartman takes you to the reunion.
This is the CBS Evening News with Katie Couric.
Good evening, everyone. This day started with the White House putting out the word the president would have no more to say about the arrest of his friend, a prominent black scholar, by a white police sergeant, or about the president's comment that the sergeant had acted, quote, stupidly. But it turned out that would not be the last word after all. At midday, a multiracial group of police union officials held a news conference to defend the Cambridge, Massachusetts sergeant and demand an apology from the president. Now, a short time after that, President Obama made an extraordinary appearance in the White House briefing room, where he made a surprise announcement.
I actually just had a conversation with Sergeant Jim Crowley, the officer involved. And I have to tell you that, as I said yesterday, my impression of him was that he was an outstanding police officer. And a good man, and that was confirmed in the phone conversation, and I told him that. Because this has been ratcheting up, and I obviously helped to contribute ratcheting it up, I want to make clear that in my choice of words, I think I unfortunately gave an impression that I was maligning the Cambridge Police Department or Sergeant Crowley specifically. And I could have calibrated those words differently. And I told this to Sergeant Crowley. I continue to believe, based on what I have heard, that there was an overreaction in pulling Professor Gates out of his home to the station. I also continue to believe, based on what I heard, that Professor Gates probably overreacted as well. My sense is you've got two good people in a circumstance in which neither of them were able to resolve the incident in the way that it should have been resolved and the way they would have liked it to be resolved. The fact that it has garnered so much attention, I think, is a testimony to the fact that these are issues that are still very sensitive here in America. So to the extent that my choice of words didn't illuminate, but rather contributed to more media frenzy, I think that was unfortunate. What I'd like to do then is make sure that everybody steps back for a moment, recognizes that these are two decent people, not extrapolate too much from the facts, but as I said at the press conference, be mindful of the fact that because of our history, because of the difficulties of the past, African Americans are sensitive to these issues. And even when you've got a police officer who has a fine track record on racial sensitivity, interactions between police officers and the African American community can sometimes be fraught with misunderstanding. My hope is that as a consequence of this event, this ends up being what's called a teachable moment, where all of us, instead of pumping up the volume, spend a little more time listening to each other and try to focus on how we can generally improve relations between police officers and minority communities, and that instead of flinging accusations, we can all be a little more reflective in terms of what we can do to contribute to more unity. Lord knows we need it right now, because over the last 2 days, as we've discussed this issue, I don't know if you've noticed, but nobody's been paying much attention to health care. At the end of the conversation, there was discussion about my conversation with Sergeant Crawley. There was discussion about he and I and Professor Gates having a beer here in the White House. We don't know if that's scheduled yet, but we may put that together. Thank you, guys.
And after that appearance in the briefing room, the president called Professor Gates, presumably to extend an invitation to have that beer. Now, with reaction to the president's latest comments, here's Bill Whitaker.
Today, Cambridge police said they appreciate President Obama's dialing back on his earlier remarks about the Henry Louis Gates incident. But at a soul food restaurant in Inglewood, California, a different reaction.
I think politically he probably had to.
I don't think that the news conference was necessary, but again, he's in a sensitive position.
In Times Square.
I really think that he's getting involved in things that he shouldn't be getting involved in.
At Tolliver's Barbershop in South Los Angeles.
I don't think he should take the words back or any of that kind of stuff.
The reactions, an indication that not even the country's first African-American president can change the dynamics, the fear, even anger that too often define encounters between black men and police.
When 23-year-old Robbie Tolan, the son of former St. Louis Cardinals star Bobby Tolan, pulled into his driveway, police, mistakenly believing his car was stolen, ordered Tolan out of the car, a mistake that ended with Tolan being shot.
I kept saying, "Oh God, I'm dying," and then the bullet went through my lungs, so I couldn't breathe.
Happens a lot everywhere you go. It's like they just harass you for no reason.
And what about President Obama's call to make this a teachable moment? Can this be an opportunity to bridge the divide?
It will still go on and continue to go on. The key is you have to learn how to navigate through racism or any of that stuff.
American history has shown this to be a hard lesson with a steep learning curve. Bill Whitaker, CBS News, Los Angeles.
Bob Schieffer is our chief Washington correspondent and anchor of Face the Nation. Bob, you've covered Washington for a long time. The president's appearance today was really unprecedented.
I thought it was just extraordinary, Katie, because what the president was saying today was that, yes, this incident should not have happened, but he said his words basically had made it worse. Now, you just don't hear presidents say things like that very often. And he didn't release a written statement. He came to the press room and he said it in person, which tells you that he knew he had to get out there and get this thing cooled off before it blows up into something that could bring everything around here to a halt for a while.
And the president, as you know, Bob, and as you heard, sort of made a joke about it, but the timing could not be worse, just as he was pushing so hard for health care reform and having some pretty serious setbacks.
Well, and he got another one today, Katie, because the conservative blue dog Democrats in the House told the House leaders today that, sorry, we've negotiated all we can negotiate. We just cannot vote for this plan that you're trying to put out there. Now, my guess is negotiations will start right up. But the fact of the matter is, if they brought this bill to a vote tonight, Democrats do not have the votes to pass it in the House of Representatives.
And how do you think the president can, if he can, resuscitate this whole effort?
I think he's got to do this, Katie. What the president was trying to prevent is what happened to Hillary Clinton back during the Clinton administration. She worked out a health plan. She did it in secret, dumped it on the Congress, and it sank like the stones. He didn't want that to happen. So he stated some general principles for the Congress and then told them to find out how to get where he thought things ought to be. But he's never stated any real specifics. What he's got to do, I think, now is set out some specific things that he wants them to do and then push them to do it.
Be much more hands-on. Bob Schieffer, Bob, thank you so much. And by the way, Bob's guest this Sunday on Face the Nation will be David Axelrod, senior advisor to President Obama. Turning to the economy now, state budgets have really taken a hit in this recession, especially in California. Tonight, lawmakers there approved a plan to close a $26 billion budget gap. This ends a very strange week that saw Governor Arnold Schwarzenegger wielding a knife in a Twitter video while asking for ideas on what to cut. The final agreement calls for drastic cuts in everything from education spending to highway maintenance. From CBSMoneyWatch.com tonight, as many as 5 million workers just got a raise. The federal minimum wage went up 70 cents today to $7.25 an hour. Backers of the increase say it was long overdue, but some economists say many businesses simply can't afford it and will end up cutting jobs. Still ahead here on the CBS Evening News, the powerful and dangerous drug that may have killed Michael Jackson. More and more healthcare workers are becoming addicted. But up next, the government's Cash for Clunkers program. Some say it's a real lemon. The government rolled out a new billion-dollar program today called Cash for Clunkers. It's aimed at boosting auto sales and getting Americans to drive more fuel-efficient vehicles. But as Jeff Glor tells us, already there are problems.
Jim Russomano's Chevy Buick dealership in northern New Jersey is still recovering after business dropped by half late last year.
Are you driving a clunker?
So Cash for Clunkers sounds like a great way to get customers back. A $3,500 to $4,500 credit for a new car when you turn an old gas guzzler in. An added bonus, getting the most wasteful, polluting cars off the road.
We're excited. I'm kind of thinking if I can sell another 7 to 10 cars a month, we'd be pretty happy about that.
There's only one problem. I'm a customer. I call up and say, I'd like to do this program. Can you explain the rules clearly?
As of today, no.
To start, qualifying clunkers have to be drivable, manufactured less than 25 years ago, continuously insured by the same owner for 1 year, have an original fuel rating of 18 miles per gallon or less, be scrapped, not resold, and the new vehicle has to get 22 miles per gallon or more.
The problem is it's really very, very hard to qualify.
The stringent requirements have led to confusion and frustration for dealers and customers, and led some critics to question how a program so seemingly well-intentioned got so far off track. The inspiration came from Germany, but that program was much simpler. Bring in a car at least 9 years old and get a $3,300 credit. Here, this 1993 Mercury Grand Marquis, a boat of a roadster with a big V8 engine, would not qualify because its original official miles per gallon was 19.
I think the biggest mistake was to just make it so complicated. I think they kind of played a little bit of the political game and then lost the whole point of the program.
While this may not boost sales nearly as much as the industry would like, it is getting people into showrooms.
We're just glad to have the fuel efficiency and a cool new car.
Drivers hoping to trade in their clunkers for cash, as complicated as that might be. Jeff Glor, CBS News, Nutley, New Jersey.
And coming up next, addicts in the ER, hospital workers hooked on the powerful drug that may have killed Michael Jackson. In sports tonight, international swimming regulators have banned those high-tech bodysuits from professional and Olympic meets. The suits are made from materials that create less resistance in the water. Swimmers shattered 108 world records last year, 30 more so far this year. And still ahead, some of you met them 3 decades ago. Up next, we'll take you to a family reunion.
Assignment America is sponsored by U.S. Bank. All of us serving you. Member FDIC.
Many of you will remember when Charles Kuralt told the final story of the week on this broadcast. On one of his trips along the road less traveled, he discovered a couple of sharecroppers. What they raised on one of the poorest farms in America was one incredible family. Steve Hartman went back to see how they're doing for tonight's Assignment America.
Even though a lot of the people at this year's Chandler family reunion weren't even born the first time CBS News covered it, the event began almost identically.
With much cheering and much hugging,
There's my daddy.
the 9 children of Alex and Mary Chandler were coming home.
Charles Kuralt first came here to Prairie, Mississippi 31 years ago. And the story he found in this family was easily one of the most inspirational of his career.
The Chandler family started with as near nothing as any family in America ever did. Alex Chandler remembers the time when he had a horse and a cow and tried to buy a mule and couldn't make the payments and lost the mule, the horse, and the cow. And about that time, Cleveland, the first son, decided he wanted to go to college.
So we went to town and borrowed $2.50 and bought him a bus ticket to go up there.
From that beginning, he became Dr. Cleveland Chandler, chairman of the economics department at Howard University.
Cleveland then helped put his younger brother Luther through college. Luther, in turn, helped James, who helped Herman. And to make a long story short,
all 9 children are college graduates.
It was the ultimate American success story. That was then, and that is still.
I knew that I was going to graduate from college. I just knew it.
I mean, it was a given. And we just grew up that way. It was a given.
You just expect to succeed. You expect to win.
Cleveland Jr. got a master's degree in music and now plays violin with the U.S. Air Force Band. His sister Kim wasn't as musically gifted, so she just became a neurosurgeon. Today there are 37 Chandler grandchildren with more than 37 college degrees. Talk to the original Chandler children.
Bring me a chair.
They'll credit their family's continued success on faith, family, education, and appreciation for the sacrifices that came before. Of course, the challenge for future generations will be keeping that history alive. But that's where the Chandlers have an ace in the hole.
9 children out of the cotton fields.
In a way, it was a great gift that Charles Kuralt gave you guys.
He had no idea.
There's so much value in that piece that you can go back and be able to teach a lesson.
And when your kids start not appreciating things,
Then you take them back to that quick.
listen to Uncle Kuralt.
Absolutely.
I know that in the future, whenever I hear that the family is a dying institution, I'll think of them. Whenever I hear anything in America is impossible, I'll think of them.
And if the Chandlers ever need reminded how special they are, I'm sure they'll think of Charles Kuralt.
I know folks are going to want to see the whole Charles Kuralt story, so we posted it on our website. Go to Assignment America and you'll find it there.
And now there's another story, hopefully, that will inspire future generations of Chandler children.
Let's hope so.
Yeah. All right. What about next week,
Okay,
Steve?
next week, we're going to find help for the homeless in fine literature. This is a crazy story. How they're doing it in Boston next Friday night.
All right. Looking forward to that, as always, Steve. Thanks so much. And that is the CBS Evening News. I'm Katie Couric in New York. Thank you for watching this week. Jeff Glor will be with you tomorrow, and I'll see you on Monday. Until then, have a terrific weekend, and good night.